Welcome to Day Zero Update for May 18th, 2025. I'm your host, Chris Elogi.
I'm Brandon Perkins.
And I'm Dan Red Victoria.
And yeah, we've got a big week of news as a bunch of things have happened. A lot of industry news.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, let's say, 2 of the 3 platform holders say that the prices of their consoles right now may not be the price they are later this year. For reasons you can probably guess. We've had some AI shenanigans in Fortnite that people had fun with. As well as, let's say, some weird stuff's going on with Bungie's Marathon. We'll talk about that stuff, plus other things that are happening here. But before we get to that, we'll talk about what we've been playing, and I'll kick it off here. I got the special edition or premium edition of Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, a very long name for the game, which I think comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. It has early access for the premium edition, which starts today, like 11 a.m. this morning, which is weird. Usually they would time it to making it available for the weekend, but being a Japanese company in level 5, putting it out there at any point, seemed to just make it available at midnight in Japan, which turns into Sunday morning here. So I got a few hours in on it, doing some main quest stuff, but it has a lot of similarities to the original game, where you were sort of this person who is able to take on what they call lives, which is what the jobs are. In that process, you pick, you start as like a plain person who's working with an archaeologist going to this island that this like skeleton, like dragon fossil is seemingly leading you to, and in the process you get attacked by some dragon, and then that skeleton fossil comes to life. Kind of stops it, but in the process things happen and you end up in some other world. And that's kind of where you start as I forget what they call the plain version of yourself, but you essentially get meet up with the king, and you find the dragon and all that of this area, and basically like, oh, you can have the dragon but not in your lifeless form, as they call it. So you have to take on a job, which I picked fishing early, as tend to be more interesting to avoid the combat focused jobs, because you can still do combat, but this gets you access to kind of the more variety of things, and you kind of get through your first like quest essentially for that job, which is what gets you ultimately to the fledgling status, which is sort of your second rank, or your like second stage of that job. But from there, they have a series of like challenges of, do some of these different things, and they'll get you points that'll get you ranked up to the next rank. I haven't done that on any of the jobs I have so far, which are just fishing. I think there's mining and wood cutting are the 3 that I've picked so far. Before I started doing more main quest progress, which ends up having you take the dragon back to wherever you came from, which you kind of seem to figure out, or I don't know if the characters have figured it out yet, but you essentially went 1,000 years in the past to a previous version of this mysterious island, to which you kind of go to this current version and deal with all that. Find out like not necessarily what came of it, but see like the ruins of where that society kind of went. Or run into some magical person or whatever, and that kind of leads to this whole weird situation where you kind of fall down this hole and then get like transported to some other dimension, or the world or whatever the characters think. I assume it's just another island area, but that's kind of where you're dealing with all of that. But yeah, it's been pretty neat. It's got a lot of the same ideas as the original, where you're kind of running around doing these jobs and such for people. You can fairly quickly kind of take on random quests from people, which are a lot of just like, I need 3 of this thing and 5 of this, and that kind of stuff. And based on quests and such you get, you may have collected a bunch of things that will satisfy some of these quests immediately. But otherwise, you're kind of being like, okay, I need to get to cooking at some point because I got a couple jobs for that, cooking some fish and steak and that kind of stuff. That is pretty interesting. And yeah, it's got a lot of, it's like the story is not really all that interesting, but it's kind of the core loop of working towards these goals and doing all that. They have skill trees that you get now. Each job has their own level, and as you level them up, you get more skill points to spend on this skill tree that can improve various parts of it, or add new abilities, all that kind of stuff. So it works out pretty well for what it is. They do a good job of letting you with some of the quests, like have it highlight where you need to go for those things. If it's needing you to go specific places, that kind of stuff does a pretty good job of that. And yeah, it's got some neat stuff to it. Especially I'm still working on getting to the point where I can have more loot and equipment and such. But they do let you set equipment and cosmetic equipment, so you can have stuff that better makes your stats better, but maybe things that look better on you as you want. With the deluxe edition, I got a decent amount of extra gear, though I haven't used it yet because it seems like it's just hey, you can look like the other 2 characters you've been hanging with early on in the game, which is like, sure, but also I don't really need that. One of the other things you get is just a bunch of extra like healing potions and such, and these are like higher level stuff. So I'm not bothering using any of that. I have not had any real threats of dying yet. So, but yeah, they make this a pretty fun game, and I'm looking forward to playing some more of it. Kind of see where it all goes. So that's Fantasy Life I. It's out on, I think, the 21st for everybody else for $60. But for $10 more, it was the early edition I could check out, and so far that's been pretty fun to jump into. But yeah, I'll check in next week and see where I'm at. So there's that. Just nice to have Level 5 releasing something that they announced several years ago. So there's that. The other thing I played is Palia. This is a free-to-play life sim MMO kind of thing that came out on PC and I think Switch like a year or so ago. It's pretty well done for what it is, but I would say I think the game has not officially hit 1.0. So, and the weird thing is that when I played the beta originally, that character came through. It did not give me an option for like starting a new character or anything. So I was kind of stuck with that character, which it didn't really matter. I had barely done anything with that character, but I was basically at the point where I had my home plot and was starting to do quests related to that. Which in, life sim fashion, you get a plot of land that has a bunch of, trees and rocks and such that you need to clear out to do your farming, do your harvesting, all that kind of stuff. So that's the thing I've been working on. I had to essentially work your way up to a lot of your crafting things, where you turn your wood into like actual planks and such that you can use, and your ore and such into bricks, different kinds of bricks, which is what you need to actually be able to build your house. Because you're going to set the place down where it's going to be, and then you have to like contribute materials to it. over time. And like the crafting stuff takes a little bit of time. It was like a minute for each plank it was going to make, so that's an interesting way to go for that. But the disappointing thing about this is just how buggy it has been. I think when I launched, it was like saying it was version like 0.191, something like that. I was like, oh, they're not, based on their numbering for this, they're not that close to like we're ready to go. We're launching full time, full game kind of thing. But the weird thing is they're selling plenty of things for you to pay with real money, with their currency and all that. So it's like this should probably be more of a less buggy build. But I was having issues where just going into the quest list menu, where I could decide like what 3 quests I wanted to have focused on the screen, were just freezing constantly, to the point I just waited till it let me back out of the menu and just like, well, I'll just keep doing things and hopefully it finishes the quests. I couldn't really follow specific things, or I was also having issues where like the cursor, the highlight for what you were looking at would not appear consistently. It would just disappear often, and that kind of stuff is pretty annoying. There's like things like that where it's like, oh, this is real clunky menu stuff and really buggy menu stuff. Luckily, it doesn't affect the rest of the game, because the action and combat and all the other stuff you're doing all work out pretty well. In contrast to stuff like Stardew Valley, this is a game that seems focused on you having like six or seven, I think, main like disciplines. There's like foraging, hunting, bug catching, fishing, cooking, and I forget what other ones there might be. But as you switch to your tools for that, you'll be able to keep track of that. I'm not sure what the max level is on that. It might be like 20 or something. But they do have trophies for getting to level 10 on those. But you'll have with the specific people that you kind of tune into for your progress on that stuff, or you buy recipes and such that unlock as you go. That stuff comes at every. They seem to have new things that will unlock every level of those jobs. So you do want to kind of do those as often as you can, which generally you're going to, because there's a lot of things to craft, a lot of things to collect, and quests along the way to do more things. And with this updates that they put out alongside the PS5 and Xbox versions, it adds a whole new area which I've not been to. Kind of the clunky menu stuff. It was kind of hard to figure out where exactly that was even at. I've just gotten to the second area in the world space here, and it's a specific exit point there that goes to this new area that's called Elderwood, I think. And they have special quests and such that you do there. But I have not gotten to that yet. But yeah, I've been enjoying it so far. Story-wise, it's basically about these people in this like further version of Earth in the future that has been taken over by what they're calling Palians. Humans have kind of disappeared except for you and the other players that just popped out of some mystical portal or something. And you're kind of greeted by a particular person who is very much investigating these ruins and all this kind of stuff, and trying to learn more about what happened to the humans, why are these people coming back or appearing here. There's some people who believe it's for religious reasons, and obviously that character is trying to figure out the scientific reason for what's going on. I don't know if that's ever going to be figured out, but you do run into a bunch of characters to deal with all this, the different disciplines and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this has been pretty fun, all things considered. But yeah, the buggy stuff is like, maybe I'll take a break for a bit, and I hope they fix it in updates. But yeah, this is out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S. It's on Steam and it's also on Switch. Runs pretty well on the PS5. I've not checked that out on Xbox yet, and my PC wasn't great at handling the PC beta version of this. And I imagine Switch is its own special version there of how that runs. So maybe they'll have a Switch 2 version at some point. But they do have cross-play and cross-progression between all the platforms, so you can kind of jump around as needed and play with other people. You see icons for people. I think you only see the icon for the platform you're on for people that are on the same platform. Otherwise, you see like a TV looking icon on next to their name. But it does have options for like a streamer mode where you can just hide people's names and all you see is the logo and such. So if you're streaming, you don't want people, sniping you or bothering you or whatever. That's the thing you can do, but I didn't really care when I was doing a little bit of streaming of it. I just kind of wish the game was more polished and ready for being on 2 new platforms where there's plenty of other free to play games to play. And this one just seems to be rough around the edges, which is a shame. But it's pretty solid. It's free to check out, so it's not really too complicated of a thing to check out if you want one of these games. So yeah, that's Palia. Then the other one I've been playing is Onimusha Warlords. They got the new game coming out next year at some point, and the remaster of the sequel is coming out this week. So I was like, I got this on sale earlier this year when all that stuff was happening. I was like, I'm going to check out an Onimusha game for the first time because it was kind of in the wake of the Resident Evil games where I was like, I don't know that I want to play any sort of like spooky, even as like a spooky samurai game. It was a game at a time where I was like, I don't know that I want to check any of this stuff out, especially when it was tank controls and all that. But now with this remaster, they did an interesting way where the D-pad still does tank controls and the left stick does your free movement kind of controls. So the only knock I've seen on using the analog stick controls is that you don't get the backwards dash that the tank controls has if you hit down on it, which might be a good excuse to use the DualSense Edge in a sense where I could map the down on the D-pad to one of the back buttons to make that work. It's a weird game control wise because like I constantly bring up the map because it's L3 and I'm constantly in combat just pressing the stick down on not intentionally but just in the stress of the battle, kind of bringing that up constantly in a way that's really annoying. And I don't think you can remap controls in this because it's it's a PS2 game from 2001. It's not necessarily something that they offered that much back then. And I'm not even 100% sure that they even put that on L3 back then. That might have been just trying to fit everything on this. Because they have means for switching between weapons pretty easily. Actually, have weapons for the different elements. I have a lightning and a fire sword, and I think there's a wind one I'm getting here pretty soon. But I've been working my way through the first area, this big castles. You're trying to free the princess and dealing with that. And as you would expect, there's plenty of demons and such. A lot of people have been killed in the process of trying to protect the castle and all that. But you find this kid that's somehow running around and a creepy guy that's laughing a bunch because you find out he's teaming with the demons to help him out and all that, and that's all weird. But he has a creepy laugh to him as well. He's messing around with the kid, and then the kid gets captured by the demons, and he's behind a door that needs the wind power. So I have to go back and figure out where I missed something and find the wind powers. Yeah, combat wise, it's pretty simple. It's square. You just hit the square button over and over again. Occasionally the triangle button when you have mana for it, because that's your special, which generally I've been using it on the bigger enemies that are tougher to beat, because that can usually take them out in 1 or 2 hits. But yeah, the boss fights not been too tough. The one I fought was basically in this square room where he essentially was just running around the different corners where the uh, camera kind of sets up in each of the corners, and just trying to get a decent view of how this guy fights, and essentially trying to trigger him into attacks that will miss, and then you get a few shots in, kind of whittle him down piece by piece, and then eventually just charges into a wall, hopefully, and you can get some more wailing. And yeah, it's kind of just one of those games. Controls pretty well. I don't know how much it's improved over the original game, but it controls pretty well here, and could maybe use a few more options. But this is a remaster from, I think, like 2018, something like that. It's a fairly old one that apparently didn't do well enough to really warrant remastering the other ones for Capcom until they announced a new game. And they're like, well, we should probably make money off of the nostalgia wave of this. So it seems like what they're doing. And yeah, this has been pretty fun. So I'll probably keep checking it out and seeing more where it goes. But yeah, it's been pretty fun so far. And that's been pretty much what I've been doing. So how about you, Brandon? What have you been doing?
Well, as for me, I am still playing the 100 line Last Defense Academy. I'm almost done with it. But so at the same time, because I needed to go back and sort of start playing the stuff that because I've been kind of neglecting my Xbox for a while. I wanted to go back and play some more of the stuff over there. The big thing I've been playing over the last few days is Doom: The Dark Ages. This, of course, is the newest game in the recent Doom series, where it essentially went back and rebooted the franchise and sort of brought it back to prominence by making it both sort of a huge update on the original formula by also making it just really damn good. But the big difference this time is compared to like the last entry, which was Doom Eternal, and people who remember Doom Eternal's biggest issue was how just insanely frantic the whole game was. You're constantly jumping around, you're constantly zipping around places. And it's overstimulating, especially when you're like the big thing is you shoot the demons, and then when the demons die, you can hit them with the chainsaw and they explode into like a rainbow of power-ups and ammo. The game, Doom: The Dark Ages, is still very visceral, but there is a couple of key differences. One of the big ones this time around compared to the past last two Doom games is there is a much bigger focus on melee combat. Obviously you're still shooting stuff. That's still more or less the primary aim, but the big difference here this time is from the very beginning, you are given a shield. And this shield has a number of different uses. Obviously, you can use it to block stuff. That's the big one. But you can also use it for like this dash attack that will let you target an enemy and take out a bunch of enemies that are next to them when you attack them with it. There's also it also will like help you like get into other areas by like breaking through like boards and walls and moving like huge crates and stuff like that. And then a little later on, you then get the ability to parry with it. When enemies attack you in this game, every so often they'll hit you with a green colored attack. Now that can be like a melee attack, like claw slashing or something, or it can be a projectile. But you can use that green attack to not only parry it, but then ricochet it back at them, and it'll hit them with a lot of damage. Many times it'll knock off like additional armor they may have. Sometimes it'll just stun them outright, and you can hit them with a finishing move. And then it goes even further later on when you then get a sawtooth attachment that you can put on it, which then means you can now throw it like Captain America and slice things in half. You can also, like, if it's like a bigger monster, you can throw it at them and it'll like stick to them and stun them temporarily. And you can wail on them while they're stunned like that. And then there's another impact later on where a lot of the enemies start getting smarter and they start realizing they need to use their own shields. So, like, depending on, like, the type of shield they're using, if it's, like, a metal shield, if you hit the metal shields a couple times, it'll, like, the shields will, like, get superheated, and then you can throw your shield at them, and it'll not only, like, split their shield, but it'll, like, cause, like, an explosion that'll knock out all the enemies that are next to them. And I've only been playing this game for a couple of days, so there's still a bunch of other stuff to discover. Obviously, if you've seen like the trailers and stuff, you know that there's a bunch of like other weapons that you get, like the one that like shoots like skull pieces at people. That's essentially like a machine gun type weapon that fires a bunch of like bullets out at like a spread range, so you can take out like a bunch of like a horde of enemies very quickly with it. Its actual like damage that it does though isn't super impressive, at least not to start out with. There's also, obviously, you've got the standard shotgun that you start off with. There's also I guess for lack of a better word, you can call it a bolt gun that essentially works as like your standard submachine gun weapon, at least starting off. Eventually you get a attachment called the Impaler where you can like launch these like metal stakes at them, and at this point it's probably the strongest weapon I've got at the game. The only problem is you've only got about 8 to 9 pieces of ammo for it at a time. But yeah, the game itself is like a prequel. It takes place like before the events of Doom and Doom Eternal, largely in Argentia, which is the Argenta, which is like that sort of weird medieval sci-fi planet that you occasionally got glimpses into in the first Doom, and then you ended up doing a bunch of stuff in Doom Eternal in it, when they're like still under the control of the makers and everything. And there's like this other sort of the funny thing about the new Doom games is they're actually kind of lore heavy, but because of the nature of the Doomslayer character himself, he's more incidental than anything. He's less a character and more of just like a force of nature that everybody is terrified of. But yeah, and on top of that, I'm also playing Claire Obscure Expedition 33 again as well. I got a little further into it, and yeah, the combat in this game is a lot of fun, but it can be brutal too. Since like parrying is a big part of the actual like combat in this game, there are enemies you'll come up across who will hit you with like 4 attacks at once, and they will like they can be like at a weird rhythm. And they'll sometimes like hold the attack just long enough so that you might like miss a split second and they'll still hit you. But damn, that game is still so good. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. So Dan, what about you?
Yeah, a whole lot less. There are 3 games that I've been playing that I can't talk about yet, but I will very soon. So we'll get there soon enough. The main game that I've been playing is South of Midnight.
Oh yeah,
I finally finished it, and yeah, like it's tough to say whether I really liked the game, but I definitely enjoyed my time.
yeah.
The reason being like I'm a little bit mixed with it is because it gets super repetitive once you figure out the loop.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That
Mhm.
it once
On
the gameplay loop, you start to figure out how it works. It's like
Yeah,
very predictable.
exactly. So on the surface, the game is a third-person action platformer. You use this girl named Hazel Flood, and at the very beginning of the game, she's getting ready to evacuate her home, and she finds out her mom isn't there because her mom is busy at the shelter helping people out, and then eventually she gets home and she gets into an argument with her mom saying that, oh, you know what, you care more about other people than me or your own family. So the argument pours over, and then while Hazel goes outside to check on the neighbors, the storm gets worse, and it eventually carries the house out of where it's plowed through, and it's all of a sudden just floating away. And from then on, the game sort of takes on this uh, Southern Gothic feel, and
Mm-hmm.
like the entire environment changes. And then from there, it just becomes something totally unruly in the best way possible.
Oh yeah.
So, um, as I mentioned, the game takes place in the South, or specifically the Deep South, and
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of the themes you come across in the game is Southern folklore, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I found particularly interesting because I'm not from the South. I haven't
Nope.
done a whole lot of research about the South aside from
Yeah.
things like racism, and I'm somebody that has been to New Orleans, and I really enjoyed my time there. In fact, it's my favorite city in America. But that being said, Louisiana is a huge state.
Oh yeah.
This game's area is loosely based on Louisiana, and with the hurricane that happens, it pretty much carries a lot of undertones to what happened to the South when Katrina happened. You
Yep.
seeing all these people lose their homes and whatever it may be, and you go through every chapter. Well, not all of them. That's actually the best part of the game. You go through most chapters just figuring out what people's problems were, and you find out that a lot of their problems, aside from things like losing their homes and things like that, a lot of their problems are deep rooted. You
Yeah.
see that kids were murdered as a result of things like slavery and other forms of oppression.
Yeah.
You learn about these other. Um, I don't know if the word if tall tales is the right word for it, but like characters in folklore like
Yep.
Swing and Molly.
Hug and Molly.
Hug and Molly, yeah, and
Yeah.
like
Hug and Molly is from she's from Alabama.
gotcha, and like
And she
just
doesn't
seeing
look
the
like
way.
she doesn't look like the folklore. One of the things I got to emphasize about the monsters you come across in this game, they're
Mhm.
inspired by these folklore characters, but they
Yeah,
rarely actually like look how they're supposed to be described. Hug and Molly is a really good example
yeah,
because Hug and Molly in the old stories I heard growing up, she's supposed to be like this 8 feet tall woman that's like super huge and round, and if she catches you when you're roaming around at night, she hugs you like super tight and screams in your ear.
yeah.
You know?
And then like not to really spoil that, but like her depiction is like, yeah, she's really huge, but she's also a spider.
Yep.
So just seeing how their versions of all these characters ends up is just pretty cool to see. And what really ties it all together, especially as you get through the end of some of these chapters, is the music. The
Oh
music
yeah, the
is
music in
utterly
this game is
fantastic. You have
amazing.
all these lyrical things just tying it all together, and it kind of, it's nowhere near the same thing, but it very much reminds me of the end of the two modern God of War games, where it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's the very end. You got to get from one point to the other, but as it's happening, the credits roll. Again,
Hmm.
like not the same thing here, but seeing or hearing the music as you go ahead and try to perform your last task with each chapter was really something that really spoke to me. I haven't really had that sort of experience since Persona 5. Like, for example, in Persona 5, when you're setting the calling card, they normally play Life Will Change. And, like, I'd be playing that game at, like, 2 a.m. And because I hear that music, I'm just going to go ahead and finish the dungeon right then and there, no matter how long it takes
Hmm.
me to do it. But yeah, just to get back on its repetitiveness. First of all, like I said, the game is a third-person action platformer, and I love those kinds of games. I love Uncharted. I love running on walls and shimmying over to different places and climbing trees and whatnot. Same thing here. I love that part. What I don't love is the combat.
Mm.
The combat does start off a little bit interesting. She has these two hooks that she can use for melee strikes, and eventually she has more in her arsenal. You can hold the X button to have a more powerful attack. She also has this finishing move where she in essence like grabs a heart to just kill enemies that way and gain some health back along the way. What I don't really like about the combat system is that they're always in arenas. It's kind of like um, a JRPG in the point where like you can't really escape. You're enclosed in this one space and you can't avoid the enemies at all. You have to kill them all. And yeah, I generally found that annoying. So whenever I saw like this green blob, which was actually a way to heal your character, but I knew enemies were coming, and I didn't really find that all that interesting. The cool thing is you can actually skip those. And seeing as how I wasn't playing on PlayStation, I didn't care about the achievements or whatever they may be. But eventually, I just went ahead and fought them out anyway, just because every time you get a kill, it was satisfying in the sense where it's like, okay, I did survive this onslaught of hell, because um, even though the combat isn't really polished, it did feel good in such a way where whenever I lost, I didn't feel like something treated me unfairly. It's because I didn't give it the attention it deserved. Um, but yeah, like it was really the combat that really bogged it down. But what I really enjoyed about this game was the fact that there's 14 chapters, and the lengths of each one really vary. Like, chapter 5 can be really, really long, and then the last chapter is really, really short. I won't tell you why, but I was glad that as soon as it started, it pretty much ended, and I was like, okay, we're good. And the credits rolled. There was one more scene, and I'm like, all right, I'm very satisfied where this went. And it's really impressive to see Compulsion Games, make this kind of a game. Just because We Happy Few, in contrast, are their other two games, and it's nothing like South of Midnight. This is Compulsion Games' first game as a part of Xbox Game Studios, and despite how I felt about the combat bogging everything down, it really hit it out of the park for me. Like, this is an example of what I want to see out of a console exclusive, and like this is something that Xbox really needed. Of course, considering considering the story and the characters in here, you're going to have a lot of people on social media call it woke or whatever it may be. But again, as someone that's not from the South but has always been enamored with things like folklore and just being able to explore everything, this game is absolutely beautiful. It is one of the nicest games I have ever played. I love the art style. The stopgap animation kind of reminded me of what we saw from the Spider-Verse movies, and yeah, like I absolutely loved it. I would love to say that I'd love to see more, but I don't think this game kind of really warrants a sequel. But I definitely love to see more developers go ahead and find their way to go through different kinds of folklore, especially stuff that's in the United States. It's easy to see stuff from Eastern Asia or whatever places overseas, but we don't really see a whole lot of like the inner goings of America, whether it be things happening in the South or things like that. And everything that we seem to know about America is due to war. It doesn't have anything to do with natural devastation such as this. And it happens. And it's a reminder that, people lived in this kind of world and people still do. And that's the kind of light that I like to see shed on certain games. And they really hit it out of the park here as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I'm glad I spent my time on it. Now I'm done with it. And I hope to jump back into Expedition 33 as soon as I finish these next 3 reviews. So, yeah, have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. The thing I absolutely love about that game is, people, finding out, I'm from the South, and they are like, like these monsters, like, are they like an actual thing? Did you grow up hearing about this stuff? And yeah, I did. Like Two-Toed Tom, my grandparents told me stories about him. The real Two-Toed Tom, obviously, was not a giant albino alligator with an island on its back, obviously. The real Two-Toed Tom was like a 14-foot alligator, supposedly originated somewhere in the swamps of Louisiana, but he apparently made his way into Alabama at some point. If you know how in the game he's got like it looks like, like a huge chunk of his maw is missing. And they mentioned in the game, somebody tried to blow him up with dynamite and that just made him mad. Well, that's actually a part of the story. That part is, supposedly there was this farmer who either chased him or lured him into a pond that was on his land. And then he sent out I think it was supposed to be like 14 syrup buckets loaded with dynamite into it to try and blow him up. Didn't work, obviously. And supposedly he eventually made his way over into the Everglades in Florida. And far as I know, the last time anybody actually supposedly saw him was way back in the 70s. because somebody found a bunch of two-toed tracks near Boynton Island. But yeah, so
Yeah. I mean, no. I mean, on that note, I do want to make one more point that I forgot to mention. Like, as much as I did not enjoy the combat, I enjoyed every boss fight in this game.
oh yeah.
And yeah, they were dope, especially Two-Toed Tom. So.
Yeah, obviously the one like monster you'll come across in that game, at least boss related, that really is like rooted in Louisiana folklore, is the Rougarou. The Rougarou comes from because the Rougarou is from Cajun country.
Okay.
The Cajun diaspora, in fact. So, like, not just in Louisiana, but basically any place that the Acadians went to after the British kicked them out of Canada, you'll hear stories about the Rougarou. So,
gotcha. Yeah, fun stuff.
All
right. So yeah, let's get to some news. And first up we have here is the PlayStation Plus game catalog for May. As they have a number of new games here joining. Let's see, for Extra and Premium. First up here for PS5 and PS4 is Sandland. The like action RPG, I guess. Based on the new Sandland series that Akira Toriyama and his studio made last year. That was a pretty good series, so I believe they're doing a second season at least. So this would be a good time to check this out and see where it went, because I believe I've heard like decent things about this game. So yeah, there's that. For PS5, Soul Hackers 2. The Atlas kind of Persona adjacent RPG.
Yep.
Was pretty good when I played it on Game Pass a couple years ago, but never really got all that far into it, so I'll be interested in maybe checking this out. For that, let's see, for PS5 and PS4, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted Full-Time Edition. I'm guessing, let's see. Yeah, this is a collection of classic and original minigames set in the Five Nights universe. Okay, has 1, 2, 3, 4, and a sister location. For that, so that's neat. It also has Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted in it, and the DLC they made for that for PS5 and PSVR 2. So you can check that out if you have PSVR 2 in there, but you can also play it if you don't. So that's good. And for PS4, Battlefield 5. If you have not checked out that one, that's a decent one there. They're kind of getting to the point they're announcing the next Battlefield here, I believe in June. So we'll see that.
Yeah.
Let's see, for PS5 and PS4, Stalker Legends of the Zone trilogy. This will be the best way to check this out. At least they just announced whatever remastered editions for the PS5 and Xbox and PC as well. So they're going to improve these even further. For that. So,
which, you know, like as somebody who has played the Stalker games before, they are famous for two things. One, they're very difficult, and two, they are broken as all hell. It's so much so that the community that plays those games has just sort of learned to accept it as part of the experience. Suddenly, you know, you'll be there and suddenly that guy's gun is just sort of floating in midair towards the sky until it disappears. It's like, it's just Stalker.
Yeah. That'll be interesting to see. Let's see, for PS5 and PS4, Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising. This is the fighting game set in the Grand Blue Fantasy universe. So that's one you can check out. I think it has some more more like action RPG kind of stuff to it, but it's a fighting game and it's a whole thing, so that's one you can check out. Let's see, PS5 and PS4, Humankind, the Sega sort of competitors to Civilization that I remember hearing like it's pretty good, but it's not as good as Civilization. But you can check it out and see for yourself. So There you go for that. And then for PS5, A Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life. The remake of Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life for the new consoles. So that's one you can check out if you want to see how well that holds up. Compared to the now dozens of similar style games there are now in this genre.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then for PS5 and PS4, Gloomhaven Mercenaries Edition. This is a tactical RPG. I want to say based on a board game. I want to say Gloomhaven is a board game that they have made into a new game. I could be wrong. Yeah, it is an adaptation of a tabletop game. So that's interesting to see. So yeah, I may check that one out. And let's see, that's it for the extra tier for PS Plus Premium. There's seems to be only one game, Battle Engine Aquila, which I forget what. This might be a PS1 game. I'm going to double check here. No, PS2. Okay. This was published by Infogrames Europe and developed by a studio called Lost Toys.
Yeah.
So I don't really know too much about this one. So you pilot the battle engine for the Forseti military in their wars against the Muspel.
Yeah.
Decide who will rule what's left of the world. Seem to get pretty decent reviews on this. Yeah, it seems like a mech shooter kind of game.
Yeah, pretty sure it was originally like a PS2 game.
Yeah. So that looks interesting.
Yeah. As far as that developer Lost Toys, it's kind of obvious you wouldn't hear of them because they were very short-lived. They started like in 99 and then closed down in 2003.
Yeah.
They only put out 2 games, I think.
Yeah. Seemed to be a bunch of former Bullfrog people when EA shut them down.
Yep. Back when that was what, EA was notorious for.
Yeah. Alongside Monkey Foot Productions and Lionhead Studios. So only one of those really broke out, though Lionhead did not survive that much longer.
No.
Shut down in 2016. So
yep.
Almost 10 years old since last time Lionhead was still a thing. So, but yeah, they seem to have made an interesting game. So looking forward to checking that out. And there's your lineup for PS Plus game catalog for the 20th, I believe. Those will be out, so you can check that out here in a couple days.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a strong month, for my own tastes. My highlights here would definitely be Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. That's the game that's been in the Evo lineup for quite a few years now. It's one of the best things that Arc System Works has worked on. And Soul Hackers 2 was nice. I've never actually played it. I have that unopened here somewhere. And I played and reviewed Sandland for Temple of Geek, and I think it's a really fun way to dive into that manga or anime if you don't want to watch or read it. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty bare-boned Bandai Namco RPG. But I did have fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you're looking forward to there, Brandon?
Well, let me look here a little bit. Maybe later. Some of this looks kind of interesting, but a lot of it also kind of looks like a bit of a throwaway stuff as well. I will say playing the Stalker games again would be entertaining, simply for just the experience. Also, I definitely will get around to playing Sandland at some point. But yeah, that's about it. At least for right now.
Yeah. All right, there's that. Do have more subscription news as Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack got a new Nintendo 64 game in Killer Instinct Gold.
Yeah.
The rare game, which was a decent enough fighting game for the...
It was decent enough, but it was definitely a downgrade from the arcade version. I can tell you that. Because I played, Killer Instinct 2 back in the day when it was in the arcades, and when it finally came out for, the N64, I was super happy. It's like, yeah, I get to finally, play it, and I mean, it was still fun. It was fine, but like it was really obvious that they had to take a lot of cuts as far as like graphics were concerned. Especially when it came to like cutscenes and stuff. That was a big one.
Yeah. The N64 was not a great fighting game platform.
It wasn't very good for graphics either. It was not terribly powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Despite being like an actual 6-button controller.
Yeah.
Didn't really take advantage of that too much with more fighting games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Killer Instinct is a game that I really enjoyed on the SNES, but of course I was like a kid, so I don't know if it was actually good or not. And then eventually when it had the Xbox One revival, I dabbled with it. I wasn't crazy about it. I'll probably like just give this a try, see how it goes from there. But this is not something that people particularly talk about fondly. But at the same time, it is worth noting that it's on there, especially like this is a rare game, right? So it's good that these are being busted out on the.
Yeah, it's a rare game, but yeah, it's one of those games that just did not do much for people. It would probably be safe to say the Xbox Killer Instinct was probably the best in the series, just for being accessible and being a quality game. But yeah, there you go. That's available now on Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. But that'll be it until the Switch 2 launch when the GameCube games start showing up. So that'll be fun. But yeah, speaking of Switch 2, Nintendo did release an updated page on their website that was listing like all these, I think 12 games that are getting free updates for the Switch 2 to mostly let the visuals look a bit better and run better for a lot of these games. So they have more details here. All of them are available for launch on June 5th. But yeah, like ARMS here says visuals optimized for the Nintendo Switch 2 display and high resolution TVs for improved image quality. Yeah, frame rate's been improved for smoother movement. So it'll be better when you have 3 or more players playing, as well as HDR support. Big Brain Academy seems to just be for game share support, so you can play with up to 4 people in party mode, as well as local or online chat through game chat. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker has improved visuals and HDR supports, as well as game share support, so 2 people can play all of the courses, and you can share locally or share online via game chat, so you can do that. Clubhouse Games has game share support. You can have up to 4 people playing locally for 34 of the games. Same with support for game chat. Game Builder Garage, the weirdest name on this list, because that's a game that realistically Nintendo has not given a shit about since it launched. But that one has improved visuals and supports Joy-Con 2 mouse controls, so at least there's that. For all the terrible ways that you can't really share the games with people that easily.
Yeah.
Let's see. New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. Wii U game on the Switch is getting an update for the Switch 2 to optimize the visual stuff. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet both have visual upgrades as well as smoother frame rates for both of them, so that's much needed for that game. Or those games. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is getting improved visuals, improved frame rate for Bowser's Fury, and HDR support for Bowser's Fury as well. So, but game share support for up to 4 people can play Super Mario 3D World. And Bowser's Fury, 2 people can play together with 1 player controlling Mario and the other controlling Bowser Jr., as well as game chat support. Super Mario Odyssey is going to have some improved visuals and HDR support, and will support game share as well for being able to play co-op, essentially one on Mario, one on Cappy, which is not really a great way to play, but they're just making that a little more easy to share with people. So there's that. And then The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening both have listed here for improved visuals and HDR support. So if that works out, because it's Link's Awakening especially was a rough looking game. It ran poorly, but it might be the case that this is one that had unlocked frame rate, and so if they can get this on a Switch 2, it should run at 60 FPS without any need for any changes there. And probably the same for Echoes of Wisdom, which looked better than Link's Awakening, but still had some rough edges to it. So looking forward to that. But yeah, there's your list of games that are going to get some slight improvements for the Switch 2 without having to pay for Switch 2 editions. So there you go.
Yeah. As far as upgraded Switch 2 games go, there's nothing but good news on this page. At the same time, I do have like my annoyances here. I do want to give them some credit though, because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet definitely did need an upgrade. So it's good to see that the frame rate was definitely something adjusted here. What I am a little bit disappointed with are the two 2D Zelda games, Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening. As you mentioned, like they didn't really perform all that well. I personally didn't really care much for the resolution, so I don't really see that being much of a thing for me. But yeah, I did want to see both of these perform better, and without the frame rate, it's tough to see whether that'll actually happen because resolution is really just image quality to me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's stuff we'll be able to check out for ourselves in about 2 weeks. Let's see. We got some dates here. Particularly, we finally got a date for Lost in Random: The Eternal Die, which will be out June 17th for PS5, Xbox, Switch, and PC. I guess it'll also be on Game Pass, so you can check it out that way as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have pre-orders up now, and it seems like they have a 10% discount for those. So you can get the base edition for $22.49. Or the premium edition for $24.64. So yeah, that's good to see. Looking forward to seeing that one. Because the first game was pretty good, and I see they got a chance to make a second one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the original game. I've always been confused about this one. Like when we first saw it, it just seemed like not really DLC to Lost in Random, but like just as an aside thing. So I always thought it would be of lower price. I don't remember how much the original one cost, but I'm a little shocked that it has a $25 price tag here. But I don't know. I still want to play it though, so I'll definitely give it a try.
Yeah. I think the thing with the original game, since it was published by EA, it kind of just got dropped in price pretty quickly. Yeah, looking on Steam, it was $30 for that game. So yeah, that was a little more expensive than this one.
Yep.
I think this one's more roguelites to it. I've seen people likening it to Hades a bit. So the original was kind of more just straightforward action adventure kind of game. But yeah, there you go. That'll be out in about a month, and not too long after that, we got Atlas was teasing some Persona 5 thing, and people figured out pretty quickly it was likely the Western release of Persona 5: The Phantom X.
Yep.
The mobile game that had only been out in Japan and I think a few other countries in Asia for the last like year or two of that, and now it's coming to the West on June 26th for PC, iOS, and Android devices. So you'll be able to check it out. And just as a heads up, this is a gacha game, so it's not necessarily a straightforward Persona game if you were expecting that.
Yeah. We have Persona 5 at home.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see some more of these games to come out in more places, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be curious to check this out and see what it is. But
Oh yeah.
Definitely not going to put any money into it. If I wanted to put money into a Persona thing, I would buy what Persona 5 Royal, whatever that's called. I think I still just have the base version for that. But let's see, what else do we have?
Royal's good. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Blue Protocol is back after being killed off. Bandai Namco a while back made a deal with A Plus Japan to make a free-to-play MMO version of whatever Blue Protocol was, and they seem to have done it. It'll be out later this year on PC, iOS, and Android. This was like a anime RPG thing that Bandai Namco announced a while ago that just kind of buttered. I think came out in China as like a early test thing, and that did not go well. So they just ended up canceling it and kind of allowing this company to kind of do something with it. And they seem to have made an actual game. So they did better than Bandai Namco did. So, but it looks like, your standard free to play MMO anime game. Lots of effects, lots of pretty girls and all that stuff too.
Yep.
I don't know if this is gacha or if it's just straightforward anime thing, but you can check it out sometime later this year. We'll probably have a date at some point, but
yeah, this one's not my cup of tea either. It's just really interesting seeing Japanese companies try to take a bite out of what China is doing when China is taking Japanese art and development tools to have their stranglehold on the industry. I don't know. I just find it all interesting, but it's just I highly doubt this actually works out here, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go. And the other date thing here, it's not really a date, but Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra, supposedly was going to come out this year. I don't think anybody really expected it because we've barely seen anything out of this game. But they formally delayed it to early 2026. So if you're one of those people eagerly anticipating it, you're going to be having to wait a little bit longer. But yeah, the early next year probably a better place for this, as long as it's not coming out anywhere close to May when GTA 5 comes out. But I assume they'll probably be the first couple months there of the year.
Yeah, I'm still holding out hope. I know like the last couple trailers were ones that I definitely have interest in. I definitely do think there is a lot of fun stories that can be told of Captain America and that version of T'Challa in 1943. But yeah, the main thing that gives me pause, and it's not really giving me pause, but obviously Amy Hennig has always been awesome with what she does, and yeah, we haven't seen anything in over 10 years, and it seems like she's just had the worst luck. So, I hope this actually does come out, and when it does, I hope it's actually great. It's just, I can't imagine what it's like to be her right now. It's like, all right, I have all these great ideas, and they're not coming out because the publishers aren't supporting me or whatever it may be. But yeah, hoping it does.
Yep. Let's see. We do have this announced like at a weird time on Sunday. Sega announced Virtua Fighter 5 Revo is coming to PS5, Xbox, and Switch too. Might be later this year, maybe next year. I don't know. They did not give any sort of date. We're just like, we're putting this out on platforms that more people might have, and seems like they're going to support cross-platform play and rollback netcode like the PC version. So that'll be good. But yeah, they're gonna keep working on the game as it's still supporting that, so that's good. While they make the next game in this series. But yeah, or Virtua Fighter 5 for people.
Yeah, I think they're sort of bringing this out because they're trying to remind people that this exists before the next Virtua Fighter installment finally comes out.
Yeah, Virtua Fighter hasn't been relevant in a while, and I say that as a fan. So I'm hoping this can go ahead and turn some heads before that project eventually turns more heads when we talk about it. But
honestly, Yeah, honestly, as far as the last 15 years go, the only way a lot of people found out about Virtua Fighter existing was by playing Yakuza. So
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, this is a weird that it's another remaster of Virtua Fighter 5 because that was a game that came out early on in the Xbox 360's life and the PS3's life,
mm-hmm,
and then they did a remaster on the PS4, and now done one for PC, and that'll also be coming to PS5 and Xbox and Switch too. And it's like, boy, I'm sure there's plenty of people that would like to see a Virtua Fighter 6, which they are working on a new one, but that it's been that long since the original came out.
mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see when. Yeah, July 2006 in arcades. So almost 20 years of Virtua Fighter 5 as people desperately waited for a new game.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, they are getting that, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Capcom released Street Fighter 4 and it's like, yeah, we're just gonna keep going with this and not really make a new one, and it's like, no, they've made 2 more since then at least. So yeah, Virtua Fighter in a better place than it has been for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
But let's start getting to some industry news where the more unfortunate stuff is happening. We had this interesting story where an artist named Anti Real.
Yeah.
I think they might have. Yeah, I think they use Leet Speak version of it.
Yeah.
But talked about how they had noticed that the art in Marathon seemed to be using their own art that was repurposed in a number of ways that certainly looked like they certainly had done. Somebody had reused this art for Marathon at some points, and Bungie has responded and saying like, yeah, that seems to be the case here. Basically saying that we immediately investigated a concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in the game, saying that this was unknown by its existing art team and it's reached out to do right by the artist. As a matter of policy, we do not use the work of artists without their permission. And let's see, to prevent similar issues in the future, we are conducting a thorough review of in-game assets, specifically those done by the former Bungie artists, and implementing stricter checks to document all artist contributions. Which they're seemingly suggesting that this was likely some contractor they used early on with Marathon to develop a bunch of art that would potentially be used in the game, like texture sheets of various assets, and that they may have lifted that from this artist, or definitely did that, and the other people weren't aware of this. I don't know if that's the accurate truth. There's a lot of people being very much acting like they did it intentionally, which I don't know, but this has happened before with Bungie a couple of times.
Yeah, isn't this the 4th time this has happened?
Yeah, something like that. Which is weird, but with all the games they've worked on and all that, it's a lot of people leaving and coming and going. It's not too surprising that people might have snuck in things that they didn't actually make to get paid or whatever. But yeah, this is not great, and obviously they should pay this person the money for the work that they did, and obviously as like a settlement of sorts, and remove the stuff from the game and come up with their own stuff. So
yeah, and the thing is this has become a pattern with Bungie now. Yeah. This keeps happening.
Yeah, and I get that people come and go, but there's a process to create assets.
Yeah.
And if you're saving work that isn't yours, that's already out of policy. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know the developers, and like obviously there's a lot of talented people there, but also it becomes a lawyer thing, and I'm sure Bungie's lawyers have been extremely busy. So like you would think that they had this down pat as well, because right now companies can't afford to get sued. They don't want to get sued right now. That's why they always try to um not have these court cases, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but as far as sourcing their material, like yeah, they've got to follow these processes, and I don't want to call people lazy, but it's been very American to look for different shortcuts in order to do things, and yeah, this is a problem that AI presents. I am all for it making things easier, but when it comes to just being lazy, it's just dumb at this point. So
yeah. So yeah, there you go. Weird Bungie news.
Mm-hmm.
As Marathon is kind of always in weird Bungie news, but we got some other Sony related news in that Jade Raymond seems to have left the studio she formed for Sony, Haven Studios, that has been working on Fair Games.
Yeah.
Seems like the executive producer Marie E. Denis and Pierre Francois Sapinski have been appointed as co-studio heads. Yeah, she helped found the studio in 2021. Then they got acquired by PlayStation a year later and has been working on Fair Games. Seems like in the process of the news of this that Fair Games, which had the $ as the S at the end of it, now is just spelled normally instead of the weird way. But yeah, this will be interesting to see. Like, I don't know if there's going to be any more news about particularly why, but I think she has been one to kind of jump around a bit here and there when she has done with whatever her plans were for helping these studios, help form these studios and get them going. So yeah, like I said, she couldn't stay for the game to release, but it seems like the game is in an alright state, but if it was supposed to be launching this year, it seems like it'll be coming out next year instead. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, sad to see her go, but I'm sure she'll find something new to do. Seems to be her thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. And our last bit of Sony news, I believe, they had their financial earnings reports this week, like a bunch of other companies, which seemed to be pretty positive, but they also talked a bit about how they're estimating that a roughly $684 million hit is expected from Trump's ongoing trade war with their tariffs, that is going to particularly play a big part in their financial earnings for next year. Which is not surprising at all. They're very much the last company to do any sort of price raising in the U.S. right now, as they're still working through their stock. They seem to very much try to plan ahead as best they could and get as many PS5s into the U.S. To account for that and keep them going for a while. Also adding that they may end up producing consoles here in the U.S., which seems like more of a thing to placate the Trump administration and not kind of set themselves up to be a target of them for further tariffs. Because I don't think they would be able to get any sort of production going in the U.S. at any time in the near future to be real useful as a cost saving measure. But they have, I believe I've read they have production going on in a number of countries, China obviously, but also Vietnam and a few other places. So they may have other ways to avoid huge tariffs with some parts of their supplies. But yeah, Trump is the wild card in the games industry right now for at least the rest of this year's. They continually just implement them and then announced delays and all this kind of random shit that is hell for anybody trying to run a business that is not solely centered around the U.S. So that's kind of Sony's thing right now, and they're much like everybody else, taking it on a week-to-week basis, trying to figure out what the best avenue is for this stuff. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that, but yeah. That's your Sony tariff news.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously difficult to see, but the tariff problem is real. Despite the latest transaction that we've been seeing, and at the same time, it's unprecedented around the world. We're seeing prices increase like everywhere but here. And then when it finally happens here, people start to care. And that just goes to show that the politics side of this is important because it affects the businesses and it affects everything. But hoping that it doesn't affect the prices here. It looks like it probably will. And if that does happen, all of a sudden Nintendo looks like the deal again. So weird space.
Yeah. And the other bit of weird news is that Nintendo spoke up a bit on this. Particularly Doug Bowser had an interview with IGN. Talking about a variety of things, but the price of the console came up, as you might expect. And Doug Bowser talking about it here, saying, well, we made a commitment by announcing the pricing of both the single SKU at $449 and the bundled SKU with Mario Kart World at $499. And we really thought it was important that we established that price point, even after further tariffs were announced, to give consumers that comfort that they would be able to purchase at that price point. Obviously, it's still a very fluid situation. It's difficult to determine what may be happening in the upcoming months or weeks, which is a hilarious way to frame it as like, this could change any fucking time because of this idiot. I'll say here, but our commitment is to find ways within existing market conditions or changing market conditions to make our products, including Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, as obtainable as we possibly can. Basically, like, try to avoid raising the price, but that may end up happening at some point. But they seem to have plans to at least try to have a continuous flow of product that'll be available through the holidays. So they'll, or at least trying to avoid huge shortages like we've had with a number of Nintendo hardware. That was especially true for the Switch. But I've seen at least like Best Buy will likely have some extra units for the midnight launch, so people that did not get a pre-order in may be able to if they're ready in time. But it's a fun situation for Nintendo.
Exactly. I don't want to beat a dead horse with this, but when they announced the pricing, this was when Nintendo already made the move of making all their distribution factories in Vietnam. And then all of a sudden, that's when Trump made his big announcement then. And it's like, okay, you can't really avoid this. And as Bowser said, they made their commitment, and we'll see if they have to go back on it. But at the end of the day, and I'm sure some of you share my opinion. I did not expect the Switch 2 to be this powerful, so the prices to me make sense. The issue to me is with the pricing of their software, which isn't really talked about here. And that's going to continue to happen as we move forward. Let's say we go ahead and be done with this tariff thing. If you're expecting the prices of games to go, or sorry, the prices of new games to go down, then that means they didn't sell. But they're probably going to sell. So it is what it is there.
Yeah. So yeah, the Nintendo media train continues to go on, and it was just funny to see them comment on the Trump tariffs at any point, because it is just it's a thing Nintendo tends to not do, is talk about any sort of political matters that affects their business. So yeah, that was fun to see that happen. Yeah, let's get to an interesting thing. So Fortnite has their Star Wars stuff going on.
Yeah.
I guess as part of this, they had a version of Darth Vader that was AI powered for conversational, essentially a version of the LLM stuff.
Yep.
Where you could respond to people, and they thought they had the guardrails in to keep it from going
Mhm.
any place weird. And then people actually used it, and you essentially used your voice chat to talk to it, and he would respond and all that. And people made him curse and say fuck, and so
Mhm.
that's when it got further work from Epic to kind of put more guardrails in there to keep this from happening. So yeah, that's a fun thing to say, and people have gotten it to go in other places, and it's like, yeah, you gave something that people could talk to with mostly unrestricted uh, terms, um, and people bashed that as hard as they could until it said the bad words that they wanted it to say.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, what did you expect? This is the same internet that when I think it was Microsoft had an AI Twitter account ages ago, that within a day it was talking about the Holocaust didn't happen and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And they had to shut it down. It's like, yeah, what did you expect? But yeah, people are expecting that this is part of, because if you remember, Disney's going to have a whole big chunk of Fortnite for themselves, and I assume this AI stuff is going to be part of that. And it's like, maybe it shouldn't. Maybe you should just have the characters saying canned phrases and such instead of trying to make it conversational when people can say whatever they want to it. Even though they claim they have fixed it, I'm sure we'll
Mm.
see how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not surprised that this happened. And it should be a good example of why you shouldn't bother with it.
Mhm.
So yeah, there you go. There's your fun Fortnite news.
Mhm.
People got Darth Vader to curse and say slurs. Man, who would have ever expected him to be a bad person?
Mhm.
So there you go. We do have some EA news, as they have
Mhm.
been in the news because they seem to uh, be pulling back a bit on their work from home policy to kind of at
Yeah.
least have a high policy and require people to spend at least 3 days a week in a local office.
Mhm.
Their offsite local work models also being sunset, taking effect within 3 to 24 months, which is a wide berth there for that. I imagine that's based on whatever sort of um, lease terms they have for these offices that I assume they have
Mhm.
around the country or world or whatever these people are at, which people are taking as a means for them to trim their workplace, like force the people that don't have the means to actually travel to an office will most likely have to resign and find other work.
Mhm.
And that's been a pretty consistent model that a lot of companies have been doing since the pandemic quote unquote ended, um, as a way to try to force more people to make use of the expensive real estate they have for their offices. So
Mhm.
it's not surprising that EA would go this route. Um, I just love that 3 to 24 months. We can't break these leases. That's too expensive. But 2 years, you might be able to actually go somewhere else.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's I think it's a little interesting that this is news. I think it's news because it was mentioned publicly or in one of their all hands events. But yeah, as you guys know, I was laid off from EA last year.
Mhm.
Spent 6 months unemployed, and when I was let go, they pretty much gave me a month to find another position within the company, which obviously didn't happen. But a few
Mhm.
months later, a friend of mine there told me to apply to a position in LA, and
Mhm.
they said that it was hybrid or remote, depending on the right situation. But then I learned that it was what you see here. It has to be 3 days in the office a week. So obviously, I wasn't able to do that. So the reason why, like, I wonder why it's news is because I was told this last year. But yeah,
yeah,
obviously, with it being made official, it is what it is there. As someone that actually like enjoys working in person, like I totally get it. But at the same time, it's like at the end of the day, this is pretty much a quiet layoff. So unless there's been something where it was signed ahead of time that people can remain remote, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that all people there are pretty much going to be expected to be there unless otherwise stated. And it's kind of like a quiet layoff because obviously, like, a lot of the pandemic has changed a lot of people in regards to, working from home, working at the office all the time, or working their hybrid from a hybrid perspective. It just makes things a lot more difficult. And again, like I totally understand the reasons why the real estate is expensive, whatever it may be, and EA has seen a lot of their games not make as much as you would hope. But like, what's really unfortunate here is the fact that when the pandemic was first taking shape, EA was one of the first companies that put on this remote way of work, and I'm not. Don't put it in my words where people have said like remote is here to stay, but at the same time, it's like that's what people assumed, and at the same time, it hasn't really affected these companies in a negative way. Yeah, we're seeing some games like not be as successful as they once were, but that's also because no one's staying home anymore. And I wish that these businesses like found better ways to realize that was going to happen because this was inevitable. And seeing that your profits were affected because no one's staying home and playing games should have been calculated in there. But yeah, it is what it is. I feel bad for anybody that this affects, but I don't know. Obviously the goal, collectively, is to have the industry back to where it was like 7 years ago, but who knows if that's even attainable anymore, especially with the new administration or whatever it may be. It's just a rough time.
Yep. I do find this interesting part of their I think considering employees who live within 30 miles or 48 kilometers of an EA location will transition to the hybrid work model. The employees who live outside of that radius will be considered remote unless the role is designated as on-site or hybrid. So that's right. There's a way for getting rid of people. It's like, oh, your position's supposed to be on-site, but you're 31 miles away. So we're going to have to force you to move a mile or no longer work here.
And that's why I say it's a quiet layoff. Like, you're pretty much forcing people to do things they otherwise wouldn't be able to do for reasons that, it's going to be private to their own lives. And yeah, you're pretty much uprooting them. And, also taking into account people who have moved to a different state in order to make things work and get laid off a month later. Like, if there was a way to promise these people that they'd be safe, fine. But that's not the case. So,
yeah, that doesn't seem like a thing they would commit to, at least. Especially when it's like areas that are famously expensive, LA, San Francisco.
Yep.
And all these where people would maybe like to live outside of town where maybe the commute is a little longer, but you're not paying, millions of dollars for real estate to live in.
No, I mean, like that's exactly what happened once we were in the pandemic. I had a lot of coworkers move into more rural areas, much farther away from the office, thinking that it would be a forever thing. And the one thing that I will empathize with companies for, not fully, but the one thing that I understand is, for example, if you move to a different state entirely, like you move to like Arkansas, where the cost of living is going to be a whole lot cheaper. I totally understand like the the tax evasion laws or whatever it may be, but if you're still within the state, it's just again just an unfortunate reasoning all around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's your EA news of the week. Now let's get to some people dealing with the consequences of their actions. And here we go with Moon Studio, particularly one of its heads, Thomas Mahler, who's been in the news in the past for being, let's say, a not nice person, very much making comments in, studio-wide chat, public chat, essentially, of racist jokes and stuff, sexist jokes and that kind of stuff that people that work there were not happy with. Him and the other founder very much named in this, but Thomas Muller's been the one that's stayed in the public sight. Particularly on his Twitter account that he focuses on.
Yep.
For reasons you can probably guess.
Yeah.
But they released a game last year, I believe, No Rest for the Wicked, that's been in early access, and was speaking on his Discord, or the studio's Discord, or the game's Discord. I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
But basically saying to people like, it's entirely possible we won't be around in a couple of months to do anything anymore simply because we got review bombed. Suggesting that people need to leave positive reviews for the game on Steam to counteract that. And the only problem is people looked at the Steam reviews and there was no review bombing happening.
Nope.
It's mostly people that played after the most recent update and were like, "Well, I'm not liking this game anymore. I'm gonna leave a review."
Yeah.
Which are normal things, and seem to equate this to be review bombing, at least in the Discord and all that. And the fun thing is, he went on his Twitter and tried to make fun of the people that read his comments and has reported on that as what he was saying, and being like, "Oh, that's not what I said." And I'm not going to read everything he says here, but he's saying things like, "I've been hit on Twitter by a few crazies for years now, and I also see calls for review bombing because, according to those folks, I'm a Nazi." In order to prove just how unfair a claim this is, Studio Boss continued, "These days, apparently anyone who doesn't include 5 trans characters in their game and doesn't let their products be influenced by political bullshit is a Nazi. What a world we live in." Which is not what anybody has said. This is him just taking any sort of progressive stuff to take shots at. Just try to claim that people were misquoting him or misreading him or anything. And all that's where he was just saying he was pushing back on some bullshit reviews he saw on their thing, or talking about the industry, things going on in the industry as a whole. Admitting on Twitter here, "No, we're not in immediate financial danger, but from time to time, I think I'm allowed to speak up about issues within our industry I personally find unbecoming." Which is like, that's not the comment you posted.
No.
You weren't like, "This is, review bombing sucks for, us developers because, these things." But no, he was just acting like they needed better reviews to counter things that weren't happening. And getting mad at the way people were responding to it on social media and elsewhere, and acting like he's the only one that's not making stupid statements. So
it's a foregone conclusion that the internet is a terrible place, and it's absolutely believable when you can blame it on when you can blame it for literally anything. But when nothing actually happened to you, that's where you probably deserve it.
Yeah. Honestly, the whiplash from that is like, dude, forget all the other shit. You might need a vacation.
Oh yeah, this guy that's too online.
Yeah. You need a vacation, you need to disconnect, you need to go to, to Cancun or Palm Springs or something and just, veg out for a while. Because when you do something like that, that is not a good sign of a person who is mentally healthy.
Yeah, this activity reminds me of like people who want to be influencers but aren't influencers at all, and then like they're talking to their social media like they have 1 million followers when they only have like 50.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like nothing that you're saying matters right now. First of all, I love your studio, but I don't know who you are, so I don't know why you're all of a sudden complaining about review bombs when nobody's dogging your game. So, yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a guy that needs to take a break. And all that. I've seen him like whining how critical people have been on like his studio, but like, where were these people for No Man's Sky and all that? It's like, boy, they got harassed a ton. And managed to work their way out of the doghouse there.
And the reason they did it is they just stopped answering, their social media stuff until they had something to show for it.
Yeah.
They just, they decided, what, don't respond, don't say anything, just keep working.
Yeah. I think all of this is largely because he had a good grip on the Microsoft money train
Mm-hmm.
and managed to fuck that away.
Yep.
With his bullshit. So now he's just on his own, trying to make ends meet, which is always tough. But when he's just saying random shit to get attention, this is not a huge surprise for this guy. So just want to highlight this weird, absurd situation that he created.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. And we'll end here on SNK's CEO Kenji Matsubara, who announced he would be stepping down in the wake of Fatal Fury's City of the Wolves essentially bombing huge.
Which sucks because it's a pretty good quality fighting game.
Yeah, but the situation all around the game with the addition of Saudi friendly guest stars, that's one of which is an admitted rapist, and another one's a DJ who's a good friend of the Saudi royal family.
Yeah.
As well as SNK being owned by the Saudi government and all that. Fatal Fury, not exactly a huge selling franchise. It does fine.
It does fine. It's always been kind of a niche. Like most people, genuinely, most people do not recognize Fatal Fury outside of King of Fighters.
Yeah, and it's one of those franchises does well in a small portion of the fighting game community, but has never broken out of that, and they spent a ton of money on this.
Yep.
This game, lots of big time promotion, marketing, and all that going on. I believe they put a lot of money in competitive scenes for this game and all that, and none of that resulted in the game doing well. And so the CEO had to step down as a result. He's moving to an advisory role, which he'll continue to lend his expertise and vision, I guess. But he was formerly CTO for Sega Networks, and eventually became president and chief publishing officer at Sega until he joined SNK in 2021. So that's kind of he's got a pretty good history there. He was also president and CEO at Tecmo Koei for several years, and was a similar role at Zynga for a bit. So I'm sure he'll get by just fine. But yeah, just kind of the wrong leadership and the wrong moves for whatever they were doing to make this their big focus with their new ownership, and did not go well. So not really a huge surprise. You kind of expect to see this kind of thing when a game sells that poorly, and hopefully they don't have to do major layoffs or anything, but they'll certainly need to find a better avenue for their next game.
Yeah.
If they're expecting to strike out bigger than whatever Fatal Fury was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate part, like Brandon said, the Fatal Fury game is good. Very good, actually. But yeah, with all the other stuff they got caught mixed up in, which I'm actually just learning about today, it does make sense.
Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna end up doing it for the show this week. A good splash of news from good things to bad things to absurd things and unsurprising things, and we got hopefully some more good stuff happening this week. We got some interesting releases like Fantasy Life I is out this week for everybody. Roadcraft is out on the 20th. One of those construction simulation games. The new Mercury Steam game, Blaze of Fire, is out this week. There's a demo out now if you want to check it out. There's a new Konami game, Deliver at All Costs. So an actual original game.
Yeah.
That's like a vehicle destruction game kind of thing. The TMNT Tactical Takedown's out this week from Strange Scaffold, making
I did not know that.
sort of beat 'em up themed strategy game. That is pretty cool from the demo I played.
Yeah.
And then Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny is out this week as well for the remaster. So pretty decent amount of stuff here. And then we'll end next week, or the week after that, we'll I have To a T, Fuga Melodies of Steel 3, Elden Ring Night Rain, which feels like it has no real hype around it like the original game had. Lost Soul Side got delayed. That's right. And, Rune Factory Guardians, no, that got delayed too. Because yeah, they wanted to line it with the Switch 2's launch, so that'll be the following week, I think. So,
the main reason why we aren't seeing hype on Night Rain is because nobody has it. So, yeah.
Well, they had the player beta test thing that people got into, and I don't think that turned into much excitement. I feel like there's a large portion of the Souls audience that isn't interested in a big multiplayer thing. But maybe that'll do well in spite of that. So we'll see. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this week. Thank you to Brandon and Dana for joining.
All right.
We'll be back next week with a new slate of news. And if you enjoy the show, it's friends and family know. You can check out the podcast and also know when it is time to take a break from social media instead of saying a bunch of bullshit that people will actively call you out on. If you literally go to that article and look up the link to the tweet, he's literally arguing with people who are like, no, this is literally what it says. And he's like, no, that's not what I said. And it's like, man, you're an idiot. Also, don't argue with people on the internet. It's a useless thing.
Yeah, don't do that. Just especially like even the like I know you feel especially when it comes to people like Thomas Mahler. Like I get it. It's tempting to do that, to get like sucked down into that that whirlpool of bullshit that Twitter basically specifically is designed to drown you in. But I absolutely can assure you, you accomplish nothing. Ever.
Yeah, you're talking to a brick wall.
Yeah, you're talking to a brick wall, and other people who are watching it don't really care.
You're just setting yourself up to get attacked by other people.
Yeah, most of them will barely remember this conversation in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And, on top of that, and that literally goes for like even the worst, like neo-Nazis and shit like that. Just don't do it. Yeah. They're already terrible people. You're not going to convince them otherwise by a Twitter thread.
Yeah.
I will give some credit to Ubisoft dunking on Elon when came out.
Oh, that's real easy as a marketing thing.
Well, yeah. Like he is internationally despised. That's very easy to do.
Yeah. But yeah, that's gonna do it. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you have a good week ahead. We'll see you all next time. Have a good one.
Bye.
See y'all.